There's a really good video by Dr. Layman that came out a few days ago, and it deals with how meme culture is becoming more relevant in the mainstream. He calls that shit Iwemdu, which, I'm sorry mate, I really respect you, but take that faggoty ass term and drown it in the tub. It's just meme culture. Meme culture. There's no need to be pretentious, Slender Man, and yes, I know who you are. The memories still run deep, mate. You can't just take a permanent marker, draw some lines on your face, and then think that I'll forget, that I won't recognize you when you cross me on the street. I know. I was little, but I still know. But let's start with the shit I very much do agree with, and that is the fact that the internet is very much a game changer. And not only does it change the rules of the game, it just changes the game. It's just a new game now, completely different game. And the old producers of culture, with their big budgets, they're trying to play the new game sometimes, but they just play them with teams of the old game, and that's why they're failing. Fundamentally, the gatekeepers have been removed, well, most of them at least. There's sometimes these new platforms where modern culture happens, and this includes meme culture, but it's not exclusive to it. Many of them are trying to become the new gatekeepers, but because of how the internet works, they'll never win. They will always fail miserably. But that doesn't mean anyone can just do any random shit and then just become big with it. The collective consumer hive mind decides what shitty, low-quality bullshit becomes a meme legend. And by the collective consumer hive mind, I of course mean the meme gods. There is a certain group of people that have a knack for appeasing the meme gods, right? Like Filthy Frank and iDubbbz, that entire posse. But I don't think they do it in a formulaic style. There's no secret they have unlocked. It's just that makes shit not just be random, but random and also funny, right? I think that the core element, if there were a formula, I think the core element of it would be honesty and realness. That's why so many corporate memes just straight up fail, because they're essentially advertising campaigns, and advertising campaigns are, by their very nature, dishonest. I think you've very accurately identified this process of deconstruction and valuing honesty over production value, which I don't think is universal, by the way, but I'll get back to that. Most of the random shit uploaded to the internet doesn't have the meme factor, if you want to call it that. And some of the shit that does never gets discovered because there's just so much stuff. And sometimes something gets big where it doesn't have the meme factor. And that leads me to something that it made me just a tiny bit angry when I saw this in your video, my friend.
The infamous children toys movies like Spider-Man and Superman, Pregnant Doctor Injection, Frozen Elsa, Big Belly Police, and Anna Superhero Funny. Those videos are some of the most watched content on the platform, and they can and are being produced by just about anyone with a camera and costumes. Another example is Filthy Frank. Frank can be basically summed up as this.
Give me the chocolate! Oh yeah!
How fucking dare you mention Papa Franco and bullshit Spider-Man and Elsa videos in the same sentence? What is wrong with you? These two things are entirely different on the face of it, and there's a very, very simple method of gauging that. Do you see a difference? People laugh at Spider-Man and Elsa bullshit because it's a lie. It's dishonest clickbait targeted at young kids. An unexperienced audience who doesn't know jack about shit. We don't ironically appreciate Spider-Man and Elsa videos like we do Filthy Frank, right? We would never consider Filthy Frank to be some sort of art form. But we do appreciate him because he's not pretentious and because he's real. And yes, I do understand that Joji is not Filthy Frank in real life. Of course I fucking do. It's a character that he plays, but it's a real character by a real artist in the 21st century. Which leads me to the main point. The grand postulation that you, my dear Dr. Layman, make, which I find to be utterly incorrect.
But there are two major differences between the Dada of the 20th century and the Iwemdu art of today. Dadaism was very much an elitist movement, which really is ironic. In its core, it's supposed to be a rejection of logic, hierarchy and reason in the face of the absurdity of human life. But when examining the art it produced, or its proponents, it becomes increasingly clear that it was an almost exclusionary I am better than you, middle to upper class endeavor.
Nigger? Meme culture is supremely elitist. Why do you think we have the term normies? And it's a derogatory term. Why do we roll our eyes at the people who not in on the joke, and then they try and inevitably fail to use it? Right? I mean, who makes memes? Who consumes memes? It's young, educated people, for the most part. It's nerds in a generation where being a nerd has become mainstream, so we've gone a little more edgy, right? Intelligent people make memes and intelligent people consume memes. They're not normie business. Meme culture is no less elitist than any of the absurdist deconstructivist movements of the past. And every cultural movement is at least a little bit elitist, the tiniest bit, and that also counts for Iwemdu. Why did I say that? I didn't want to say that. I do hope meme culture's craving for honesty has a lasting effect on future culture, which I think is more a effect of the platform it developed on, but then again, meme culture also formed the platform, so really at the end of the day, who knows what I'm even saying right now? I don't. But let's talk about
the minimal investment for maximum effect.
Now, I may have misunderstood this. I think I have. But are you saying that the era of master-crafted pieces of art with high production value is over?
Once every act of heroism has been painted in the most beautiful way, once every wonderful, inspiring statue has been chiseled, and once every tale of serious human strife has been shared with the world, facts that are increasingly easy through the dawn of cultural globalization, once every bit of seriousness like that has been captured, packaged, and shared with the world, what's left to do? What's left to enjoy?
That will never happen! Ever! Unless we enter some perfect machine hive mind, which you should probably check out my video on that. You know, the point at which all possible pieces of great art have been created will never come. And even with that magnificent, incredible, ridiculous, absolute change in how humans live, it might also never happen. This right here is a piece of artwork by Simon Stalenhag, Stalenhag, which probably I pronounced that wrong, but who gives a shit? It's a piece of craftsmanship, right? This is high culture. He's got a bunch of these. They're coming out all the time. There's more high culture being produced right now than ever in human history ever by a margin that is almost unimaginable, right? The internet has created new genres of music every year. Look at all these TV shows and independent films that are coming out, right? I mean, you mentioned this in your video, but which is why I believe I may have misunderstood what you're saying, but the postulation, if you were saying it, would be ridiculous. All these super high budget Netflix, HBO, whatever, probably fan-funded in the future television shows with the complex plots and the narratives and the characters. We have books coming out that are more complicated than anything in most things in the past few decades. Of course, science fiction has always been a bit more out there, as it was written for a more intelligent crowd. But that intelligent crowd now is more mainstream than it ever was. High culture is not going away. It's just getting started. Super ironic meme culture isn't just a supplement that we take to cleanse our cultural diet of too much seriousness or dishonesty, right? Though I do think that is its primary purpose, why meme culture will be much longer lived than all the other absurdist movements that were quite short-lived, like Dadaism and Nadaismo from Colombia. It interacts with and plays off high production cultural goods, which they will sometimes sprinkle a little bit of meme culture in there if it's appropriate for the tone, but you have to be careful with that shit, because if it's a bit like salt, if you put too much in it, then your serious cultural product becomes an ironic cultural product, which might be fun, but it might also just fail miserably. This example you made with Supernatural, right? I think it's a bit wonky, because pretty much the same development happened with the X-Files, and nobody's going to tell me that Mulder and Scully were super affected by meme culture. The reason I believe meme culture is not a rejection of high culture and great craftsmanship is quite simple, actually. It's the fact that it criticizes modern art a lot. Modern art, that of the 21st century specifically, is actually a rejection of craftsmanship, right? When you used to have people like Picasso and Dali who did paint bullshit, but at least they knew how to do it right. With most of these modern artists, I would argue that they do not know how to do it right and just throw some shit in there and pretend it's something that it's not, which the meme gods do not like. Postmodern art is essentially this new top-down deconstructivism you observe in Dada, which meme culture rejects because, ironically, meme culture is pretentious about not being pretentious, which is actually meta as fuck. Memes are not postmodern, right? They're not random, because if they were random, that would imply you can't do them wrong. But you can. You can do memes wrong. Nobody quite knows how, but it's a feeling that people have how you do memes wrong. They are satirical in nature, and even when they satirize nothing in particular, they sort of satirize the concept of seriousness, which let's be honest here. Seriousness is just an excuse for people to lie to each other, isn't it? Which leads me to the point where I really hope that you are right on, which is the cultural shift to informality away from professionalism.
A lot seems to indicate that we will slowly move away from the culture of professionalism, of good manners, of social respect and norms, away from grand political speeches, away from social obligations, and towards a culture of irony.
Meme culture and its surroundings, this whole Iwemdu notion, and yes, I am using your term right now, just to make sure we're on the same page. They have created the great philosophers of our age, right? The great philosophers. Of course, we're too pretentious to use a term as pretentious as philosopher, but at the end of the day, T.J. Kirk is a bloke who sits there and he says things which are ideas, and we listen to it. I mean, what's the difference? The fact that he's loud, fat, and swears a lot doesn't change the essence of his ideas. In fact, it perfectly encapsulates this beautiful shift to informality you're describing, which I do very much hope comes to pass, right? I mean, there's thousands of people out there like TJ, right? I mean, he's just a very prominent one. We're essentially doing the same thing that TJ is, right? All of us have very different perspectives. We have a different style, some of which are fairly simple, conservative, right? Not ironic, but very matter of fact. But they're still honest, so they're not satirized by memes. So to summarize, memes are all about truth and the realness. And memes kill lies, and memers slay liars. Of course, it might also be that we're just rewriting the rules of engagement and people in the future are just gonna use our ridiculous bullshit styles completely seriously, which is, you know, the way they weren't intended to be used. But future people are cunts. Yeah, I'm talking to you with your rocket boots and your space stations and your sex robots. Maybe you want to maybe send one of them back here with your time machine. You know, just I'm just saying, you could do that, right? Also, if you're Layman watching this, especially sticking around this late, thank you very much. I'm a Babylonian, by the way. I just wanted to point out some of the stupid bullshit you said with your last video. It's all in the spirit of the new culture, my dude. Also, Daniel Aminati's a fucking cringelord, nigga, and you know it.
Ich habe hier einen Gewinner, den Hugot Mittellücke aus an der Fenne. Herzlichen Glückwunsch und